The words hit her like claws across the chest. I, Gavrick of Greymore, reject you. She stands in the center of the great hall, hundreds watching, the moon blessing still glowing on her wrist where the faded bond had marked her only hours ago. The mark that was supposed to mean forever. The mark that every wolf dreams of receiving. And he is throwing it away. You are weak, Gavrick continues, his voice echoing off the stone walls. Thin-blooded. Unworthy of standing beside me. I will not be shackled to a mistake of fate. She cannot breathe. The bond writhes inside her chest like something dying. The crowd does not gasp. They do not intervene. Some avert their eyes. Others smirk. His mother, the Lady Morwen, watches from the dais with a smile as cold as winter steel. Please, she whispers, not because she wants him, but because the rejection will destroy her wolf. Everyone knows this. A severed, fated bond is a death sentence. Gavrick turns his back, and then the doors of the great hall crash open. Enemy soldiers pour through, black and silver armor, wolves the color of smoke and shadow. And at the center of them, a man who makes the entire room go silent. Alpha Calder of Thornwell. The war between their packs ended 3 weeks ago. He is here for treaty negotiations. He is here to formalize peace with the pack that nearly destroyed his. He should not even look at her. But he does. His gaze sweeps the hall, finds her standing in the center, broken and trembling, the rejection still fresh on her skin. His eyes move to Gavrick, to the smirking crowd, back to her. And then, the most feared alpha in the Northern Territories does something no one expects. I claim her, he says. The hall forgets how to breathe. Why would Calder of Thornwell, legendary conqueror, rumored monster, the man who killed Gavrick's father in single combat, why would he choose the woman his greatest enemy just threw away? 3 hours earlier, Namira had been the luckiest woman in Greymore. The moon blessing had appeared on her wrist at dawn, a perfect crescent, glowing faintly silver, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. She had stared at it for 10 full minutes before she believed it was real, a faded mate mark. And when she had walked into the great hall for the blessing ceremony, when Alpha Gavrick's mark had flared in answer to hers, the crowd had erupted. The pack seer had declared it ordained. The elders had wept. Even Lady Morwen had smiled, though something about it had felt like watching a snake decide whether to strike. Namira had floated through the morning preparations in a daze of disbelief. She was no one, a healer's apprentice, daughter of a soldier who fell in the border wars. Her mother, a seamstress, had followed him into death within the year, her heart unable to bear the loss. She had no status, no wealth, and no powerful bloodline. The only reason she lived in the main keep at all was because the old healer had needed an extra pair of hands, and fate had chosen her for the alpha. She should have known it was too perfect. The first sign was the way Gavrick looked at her during the formal presentation. Not with warmth, not with wonder, with something closer to disgust, quickly masked. The second sign was Lady Morwen pulling her aside during the feast preparations. Enjoy this while it lasts, girl, the older woman had said pleasantly. Not all bonds are meant to be honored. Namira had not understood. She understood now. She stood in the center of the great hall with 500 wolves watching, and the man who was supposed to be her destiny telling her she was worthless. The bond inside her chest screamed, I, Gavrick of Greymore, reject you as my fated mate. Each word landed like a physical blow. She felt her wolf curl inward, whimpering, trying to make itself small enough to disappear. You are weak, Gavrick said. He did not even raise his voice. He was bored. I will not anchor my reign to someone so beneath me. The fated bond is a suggestion, not a command. And I decline. The mark on her wrist flickered. Please. Her voice cracked. She hated herself for begging. The rejection will kill my wolf. You know what happens when... Then your wolf was too weak to survive anyway. Someone in the crowd laughed. Others joined. Namira's knees buckled. She caught herself. Barely. Her vision blurred. The bond was tearing now. She could feel it. Every thread that had woven itself between her soul and his, ripping apart like wet cloth. This was how rejected mates died. Not from poison or blades, from their own hearts giving up. Lady Morwen descended the dais and walked past her without a glance, trailing perfume and satisfaction. The doors crashed open. Namira's head came up despite everything. Through the tears, she saw soldiers filing through. Black and silver. Wolves the size of horses flanking them. And at their center, Alpha Calder of Thornwell. She knew him by reputation. Everyone did. The Alpha who had united the 3 fractured mountain pacts through sheer brutality. The man who had killed Gavrik's father in the Battle of Ashfall and mounted his skull above his throne. The war between Thornwell and Greymore had lasted 7 years and claimed thousands. He looked exactly like the stories described. Tall enough to block the doorway, dark hair shorn close to his skull, a scar running from temple to jaw, white against sun-darkened skin, and eyes the color of a winter storm, pale gray and utterly without mercy. He was supposed to be a monster. Namira could not stop looking at him. His gaze swept the hall like a man cataloging threats. It passed over the smirking nobles, the nervous guards, and the rigid form of Gavrik on the dais. It found Namira and stopped. She saw something flicker in those cold eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or calculation. She could not tell. Gavrik stepped forward, all false warmth. Alpha Calder, you are early. The treaty negotiations are not scheduled until... I claim her. The 3 words fell into the hall like stones into still water. No one moved. No one breathed. Namira stared at him, certain she had misheard. Calder did not look at Gavrik. He looked only at her. The woman you just rejected, he said, his voice carrying to every corner. I claim her for Thornwell. Calder had not planned this. He had ridden to Greymore for one purpose, to finalize the treaty that would end 7 years of bloodshed. His people were exhausted. His lands were scarred. The war had cost him his brother, his closest advisors, and more soldiers than he could count. He had come prepared to negotiate. He had not come prepared for what he found in that hall. The moment the doors had opened, he had scented it. Pain, fear, the sharp copper tang of a bond being severed. His wolf had surged forward, hackles rising, instincts screaming that something was deeply wrong. And then he had seen her. She stood in the center of the room like a wounded deer in a circle of wolves, thin shoulders, dark hair tumbling loose, a healer's apprentice by her clothes, no one of consequence. She was trembling so hard he could see it from across the hall, and on her wrist, a faded mark flickered and died. Calder had watched Gavrik finish his rejection speech, had watched the crowd laugh, had watched Lady Morwen glide past the girl like she was already a corpse. Something cold and absolute had settled in his chest. This was the pack he was supposed to make peace with. These were the wolves who would supposedly honor their treaties and their word. And here they stood, watching a girl die for the crime of being chosen by fate. His wolf made the decision before his mind caught up. I claim her. The silence that followed was almost worth it. Gavrik's face cycled through shock, confusion, and fury in the space of a heartbeat. You cannot be serious. I am always serious. Calder stepped forward, his wolves falling into formation behind him. You rejected her. The bond is severed. By your own pack law, she is unclaimed. And I claim her for Thornwell. She is a citizen of Greymore. She is nothing to Greymore. Calder let his voice drop into the register that made lesser wolves flinch. You made that clear. Unless you wish to declare that a rejected mate still holds citizenship, Unless you wish to explain to my council why you are blocking a peaceful transfer of a woman you just called worthless." He watched Gavrik calculate. The younger alpha was furious. That much was obvious. But Calder had been fighting wars since before Gavrik had presented his first shift. He knew what capitulation looked like. Gavrik's jaw tightened. "Take her then. She will be no use to you either." "We shall see." Calder turned to the girl. She stared at him with wide, terrified eyes, brown and gold like autumn leaves. Beautiful, though he doubted she knew it. She flinched when he extended his hand. "Come," he said, gentling his voice as much as he was able. "You do not belong here anymore." She looked at his hand like it was a blade. He waited. Slowly, trembling, she placed her fingers in his palm. Her skin was ice cold. He could feel her pulse hammering against his grip. He led her out of the hall without looking back. The ride to Thornwell took 6 hours. Calder's wolves surrounded them in protective formation, their massive forms cutting through the snow-laden forest like shadows. Namira rode beside him in silence, bundled in a cloak one of his soldiers had provided. She had not spoken a single word since leaving Greymoor. Calder did not push. He understood shock. He understood what it felt like to have your entire world collapse in the space of a single conversation. But he found himself watching her more than he should. She sat straight despite her obvious exhaustion. Her hands were steady on the reins even though her body still trembled faintly. And every time one of his wolves got too close, she did not cower. She watched them, cataloging, assessing, looking for weaknesses. "Interesting," his wolf murmured. Calder agreed. When the black spires of Thornwell Keep emerged from the mountain pass, she made a small sound. Not fear, exactly. Something closer to resignation. "You think I have traded one prison for another?" Calder said. It was the first time he had spoken directly to her since the hall. She startled slightly, then looked at him with those autumn eyes. "Haven't I?" Her voice was rough, unused. But there was something beneath the fear now, a thread of steel that had not been there before. Calder considered her for a long moment. "Perhaps," he said finally, "or perhaps you have simply exchanged wolves who wished you dead for wolves who do not yet know what to make of you." "And you?" she asked. "What do you make of me?" The question hung between them as they rode through the great iron gates of his fortress. Calder did not answer. But his wolf stirred restlessly in his chest, and he found himself thinking that this broken, discarded woman was going to be far more complicated than he had anticipated. Thornwell Keep was nothing like Greymoor. Where Greymoor had been all polished marble and gilded chandeliers, Thornwell was raw stone and iron. The walls were thick enough to withstand siege. The corridors were narrow enough for defensive combat. Everything here had been built for war, and it showed. Namira followed the servant assigned to her through winding passageways, trying to memorize the route and failing. She was too tired, too hollow. The place where the bond had been felt like a wound that would not stop bleeding. Her wolf whimpered whenever she tried to reach for it. "You should be dead," she thought. "We should both be dead by now." But she wasn't, and she did not understand why. The servant, a thin woman named Selah, deposited her in a small but clean chamber with a narrow bed and a fire already crackling in the hearth. "The Alpha requests you rest tonight," Selah said, not quite meeting her eyes. "He will send for you tomorrow." "Am I a prisoner?" Selah hesitated. "You are a guest. Is there a difference here?" The servant had no answer. She left quickly, and Namira heard the soft click of a lock turning. Guest, she thought bitterly. Right. She slept poorly and woke before dawn. The fire had died to embers. Frost traced patterns on the window glass, and somewhere nearby, a child was crying. Namira sat up, listening. The sound was muffled, coming from beyond the wall. Not quite crying, actually. More like whimpering. the high, desperate sound of an animal in pain. She crossed to the door and tried the handle. Locked. Of course. But the window. Namira eased it open and leaned out. A narrow ledge ran along the exterior wall, maybe 8 inches wide. Suicidal for a human, manageable for a wolf with good balance. She shifted just her feet, letting the claws grip the stone, and edged along the ledge until she reached the next window. It was cracked open slightly. She slipped through. The room beyond was a servant's storage chamber, barely larger than a closet. And huddled in the corner, clutching a bloodied arm to his chest, was a boy. He was perhaps 8 or 9, dark hair tangled with dirt, eyes the color of smoke. And on his arm, fresh cuts that looked deliberate, precise. Punishment marks. Namira crouched slowly. "Hello?" she said softly. The boy flinched violently but did not run. His eyes darted to the door behind her, calculating whether she was blocking his escape. "I'm not going to hurt you." She held up her hands. "I'm a healer. I can help with those cuts if you let me." He stared at her for a long moment. Then, cautiously, he extended his wounded arm. Namira worked in silence, cleaning the cuts with water from a pitcher in the corner, binding them with strips torn from her own underskirt. The wounds were not deep enough to be dangerous, but they had been inflicted with care. Someone had wanted them to hurt without causing permanent damage. "Who did this?" she asked. The boy pointed to his throat and shook his head. Mute. Or silenced. Namira's chest tightened. "Does this happen often?" The boy shrugged. A gesture so hopeless it made her want to scream. "What is your name?" He hesitated, then traced letters on the dusty floor. W-R-E-N. Ren. She smiled despite everything. "I am Namira. I am new here. I do not know the rules yet, but I know this much. No one should cut you like this." Ren looked at her with an expression that said he had heard such promises before. The door slammed open. A heavy-set man in steward's livery filled the doorway, his face purpling with rage. "There you are, boy." He did not even acknowledge Namira. "Thought you could hide, did you? The kitchens need clearing and you decided to take a little nap?" He reached for Ren's arm. The boy scrambled backward, but there was nowhere to go. "Stop." Namira stepped between them. The steward blinked at her. "Who in the hells are you? I am Namira of—" She hesitated. "Of where?" She had no pack now. "I am under Alpha Calder's protection, and I am telling you to stop." The steward laughed. "Protection? You are the rejected little thing he dragged in from Greymore. You have no standing here. Move aside." "No." Something in her voice surprised even her. It came from the same place her wolf used to live. Hollow but certain. The steward's eyes narrowed. He raised his hand. "Touch her," a voice said from the doorway, "and I will remove it from your body." Namira spun. Alpha Calder stood in the corridor, still dressed in riding leathers, hair damp from snow. His expression was perfectly neutral, but his eyes were not neutral at all. The steward went pale and dropped to his knee. "Alpha, I was merely disciplining the kitchen boy. Did I ask for an explanation?" "No, Alpha." Calder stepped into the room. His gaze moved from the cowering steward to the trembling boy to Namira standing between them, with her fists clenched and her borrowed dress spotted with Ren's blood. "The boy," Calder said slowly. "Who gave permission to cut him? It is standard discipline for servants who—" "That was not my question." The steward swallowed. "Your mother, Alpha. Lady Viola established the protocols years ago." Something flickered across Calder's face. There and gone. "The protocols," he said, "are changing. There will be no more cutting, no more blood discipline. Any steward found violating this will answer to me directly. Is that understood?" "Yes, Alpha. Leave." The steward fled. Calder turned to Ren. The boy pressed himself against the wall, clearly expecting the same treatment. Instead, Calder crouched down to his level. movements slow and deliberate. "You are safe," he said quietly. "No one will punish you for hiding. Go to the kitchens. Eat something. Tell them the Alpha said so." Ren stared at him with wide, disbelieving eyes. Then he darted past them both and vanished down the corridor. Calder rose and turned to Namira. She braced herself for anger, for accusations about leaving her room, about interfering, about overstepping her place. Instead, he studied her with that same unreadable expression from the night before. "You put yourself between a man twice your size and a child you do not know," he said. "Why?" "Because someone had to. You have no standing here, no power, no protection except what I choose to give you, and you did it anyway." Namira lifted her chin. "Yes." Calder was silent for a long moment. Then, so quietly, she almost missed it. "Good." He turned and walked away, leaving her standing in the empty storage room with her heart hammering and her wolf stirring, for the first time since the rejection, with something that was not pain. 3 weeks had passed since he brought the rejected mate to Thornwell. Calder stood at the window of his study watching the courtyard below. Namira was there, kneeling in the snow beside Ren, showing the boy how to pack herbs into a poultice. The child watched her with the kind of focused attention he had never shown anyone else. She had that effect on people. Calder had noticed it almost immediately. The servants who had initially treated her with suspicion now sought her out when they were injured or ill. The guards nodded to her in the corridors. Even his wolves, massive beasts who trusted no one outside the pack's inner circle, had taken to following her on her walks through the keep. It should have concerned him. Instead, he found himself inventing reasons to be where she was. "Pathetic," his wolf observed. "You are an alpha. Act like one." But his wolf was no better. Every time Namira entered a room, the beast went still and alert in a way that had nothing to do with threat assessment. A knock at his door. "Enter." The door opened and Namira stepped through, still wearing her healer's apron, a smudge of something green across her cheek. "You sent for me, Alpha?" "Calder." She blinked. "I'm sorry? My name is Calder. You have been here 3 weeks. You may use it." Something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe, or wariness. She still looked at him sometimes like she expected him to reveal the monster everyone said he was. "Calder," she said slowly, testing it. "You sent for me?" "I wanted to discuss Ren." Her expression shifted immediately to protective. "Has someone complained?" "He has done nothing wrong. If the steward—" "No one has complained." He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Sit, please." She sat, though she perched on the edge like a bird ready to take flight. Calder leaned against the window frame, studying her. In the gray light of the winter afternoon, she looked different than she had that first night. Less hollow. The shadows under her eyes had faded. Her cheeks had regained some color. "The boy has attached himself to you," he said. "He has no one else. He has the entire servant household." The entire servant household was cutting him for minor infractions 3 weeks ago. Her voice sharpened. "Forgive me if I do not consider them adequate guardians." Calder felt his mouth twitch. He suppressed it. "I did not call you here to argue," he said. "I called you because I have a proposal." Her eyes narrowed. "What kind of proposal?" "Ren cannot remain a kitchen servant. He is too clever for it and the other servants resent him for it. I would like to place him somewhere more suitable." "Where?" "With you." She went very still. "I am establishing a formal healer's quarters," Calder continued. "You would oversee it. Ren would be your assistant and apprentice. He would have standing, protection, purpose." "Why?" The question was barely a whisper. "Because you were right," Calder said. "Someone had to stop what was happening to him. You did. I should have done it years ago, and I did not. This is my attempt to correct that failure." She stared at him for a long moment. He could see her trying to find the trap, The hidden cost. The strings attached. Why do you care? She asked finally. About any of this. About him. About me. You are supposed to be a monster. Everyone says so. Gavric called you a butcher. Lady Morwen called you a beast wearing human skin. And yet... You kneel in the dirt to comfort frightened children. Her voice cracked slightly. You change laws because a servant was being hurt. You offer standing and purpose to a mute orphan boy nobody wanted. I do not understand you. Calder was quiet for a long moment. Then he crossed the room and sat in the chair beside hers instead of behind his desk. Close enough that he could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes. Close enough to touch, though he did not. Do you want to know why I claimed you? He asked. She nodded, barely breathing. When I walked into that hall and saw you standing there, I saw myself. Her brow furrowed. I do not. 30 years ago, I was the one standing in a hall while everyone watched. My father had just been killed by my uncle in a challenge. My mother stood on the dais and did nothing. The pack laughed because I was 8 years old and crying over a corpse. He paused. No one helped me. No one intervened. I learned that day that power was the only thing that could protect you from cruelty. Calder. I spent the next 20 years becoming the monster everyone expected. I fought wars. I killed men. I did things that cannot be undone. He met her eyes, but when I saw you in that hall, when I saw them laughing while you died in front of them, I remembered what it felt like to be the one nobody helped. And I decided that this time, someone would. Her eyes were wet. That does not make you a monster, she said softly. It does not make me good either. Perhaps not. She reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away, and placed her hand over his. But it makes you someone worth knowing. His wolf went absolutely still. Calder looked at her hand on his. Small and scarred from healer's work. Warm against his cold skin. You should be afraid of me, he murmured. I was. She did not move her hand. I am not certain I am anymore. The moment stretched between them, fragile and electric. He could hear her heartbeat, could smell the herbs on her skin and something beneath it that was purely her. He wanted. The door crashed open. Alpha. A guard stumbled in, face pale. It's happening again. The episodes. You need to come now. Calder was on his feet instantly, the moment shattered. But not before he saw the confusion on Namira's face. Episodes? She asked. What episodes? He was already moving toward the door. Stay here, he ordered. Calder, what? Stay here. He left before she could ask anything else. But he could feel her eyes on his back, and he knew with certainty that she would not let this go. Namira did not stay. She waited until the guard's footsteps faded, then slipped into the corridor and followed the sounds of shouting. The commotion led her to the east wing, to a heavy iron door flanked by 2 guards who looked like they wanted to be anywhere else. Through the door, she could hear crashes, snarls, the unmistakable sound of something large throwing itself against walls. What is happening? She demanded. The guards exchanged glances. The Alpha's condition, one said reluctantly. It happens sometimes. He loses control. Loses control how? Another crash, a howl of rage that made her bones vibrate. His wolf takes over, the second guard said. He cannot shift back, cannot think, just attacks. We learned years ago not to go in. We just wait it out. How long does it last? Hours. Sometimes most of the night. Namira pressed her hand against the door. Through the iron, she could feel something. Not sound. Something deeper. A wrongness that made her healer's instincts scream. This has happened before? Many times? Since he was young, my lady. His mother says it is a defect in his bloodline, a madness that cannot be cured. His mother, Lady Vela. Namira had met the woman only once, briefly, on her second day in Thornwell. an elegant woman with Calder's gray eyes but none of his warmth. She had looked at Namira the way Lady Morwen had looked at her, like she was measuring her for a grave. "The episodes," Namira said slowly. "When do they happen?" "Unpredictably, my lady. Sometimes weeks apart. Sometimes—" "No, I mean, what happens before them? Does he eat? Drink?" The guards frowned at each other. "He dines with his mother most evenings," one offered. "Private meals. She insists on it." A prickling unease crawled up Namira's spine. Every time? Before every episode? The guard's face went pale as he understood what she was implying. "My lady, you cannot possibly suggest—" "Open this door. My lady, he will kill you. When he is like this, he does not recognize anyone. Open it." The guards did not move. Namira reached past them and lifted the iron latch herself. The door swung inward. The room beyond had once been a sitting chamber. Now it was wreckage. Furniture splintered, tapestries shredded, claw marks gouging the stone walls. And in the center, a massive wolf paced in tight, frantic circles. He was enormous, larger than any wolf she had ever seen, even among alphas. His fur was the gray of storm clouds, matted with sweat and flecked with foam. His eyes were wrong, pupils blown wide, no recognition in them at all. He saw her and lunged. Namira did not run. She dropped to her knees. The wolf skidded to a halt inches from her face, snarling, teeth bared. She could feel his breath, hot and wrong-smelling, chemical almost, like something burning. "Calder," she said softly. "I am here." The wolf snarled again, but did not strike. "I know you are in there." She kept her voice low, steady, the same voice she used with wounded animals. "I know something is wrong. This is not you. This is not your wolf. Something has been done to you, and we are going to find out what." The snarling faded to a growl. "I am not afraid of you," she continued. "You saved a boy you did not know. You changed laws to protect servants. You claimed a broken woman just so she would not die alone in a room full of enemies." She reached up slowly. "You are not a monster. You are a good man who has been made to believe he is broken." Her hand touched his muzzle. The wolf went rigid. For a terrible moment she thought he would tear her throat out. Then, slowly, the massive body sank to the floor. The wild eyes flickered. The foam-flecked muzzle pressed against her palm, and a sound came out of him that was not a snarl. It was a whimper. She stayed with him through the night. The wolf did not shift back, but he did not rage either. He lay curled around her like she was the only anchor he had to sanity, his great head in her lap, his breathing slowly evened out. Ren found them at dawn. The boy crept in with a blanket and a flask of water and settled against the wolf's flank without a word, his small hand stroking the gray fur. "We are quite a group," Namira thought. "A rejected mate, a mute orphan, and an alpha everyone thinks is mad." When the sun rose fully, the wolf finally shifted. It was not graceful. Bones cracking, muscles reshaping, a process that looked agonizing. Calder emerged from it gasping, naked and trembling on the cold stone floor. Namira wrapped him in the blanket Ren had brought. She did not look away from his face. "It was not madness," she said, her voice low. "Your eyes, your breath, the way it came on suddenly. Someone has been poisoning you." He stared at her. "You cannot know that. I am a healer. I know exactly that." She touched his cheek gently. "The question is, do you know who?" His face did something complicated. Pain and suspicion and a desperate hope he was trying to suppress. "It cannot be," he said finally. "Your mother hosts private dinners with you before every episode. She is my mother." And Lady Morwen smiled while Gavrik destroyed me. Namira held his gaze. Mothers are not always what they should be. Calder closed his eyes. Ren pressed closer against his side, a silent comfort. Namira kept her hand on his cheek, feeling the tremors still running through him. I need proof, he said finally. Before I can... Then we will get proof. He opened his eyes and looked at her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. Why? He asked roughly. Why do you care what happens to me? Because someone should, she said. And because you are worth saving, Calder. Even if you do not believe it yet. The proof came faster than either of them expected. Namira had asked Sela to collect samples from Calder's private dining chambers. The woman was terrified but loyal, and within 2 days, she returned with a small vial of wine residue and a sealed letter. The wine, my lady, Sela whispered. I took it to old Brennan, the alchemist in the lower town. He confirmed it. Night bloom extract. It causes madness in wolves, uncontrollable rage, loss of self. Namira's hands shook as she took the vial. And the letter? I found it in Lady Vela's study. I do not know what it says. I cannot read. Namira broke the seal. The letter was addressed to Lady Morwen of Greymore. Her blood turned to ice as she read. My dear Morwen, your plan proceeds perfectly. My son continues to believe his madness is inherent, a flaw in his nature that can only be channeled through war. As long as I control his episodes, I control him. The rejected girl is an unexpected complication. He has taken an interest in her that I do not like. But she is insignificant. Once the treaty is finalized and your fool son has consolidated power, we can dispose of her easily enough. The alliance between our houses will reshape the northern territories. Your son will rule Greymore. Mine will continue to wage the wars that keep both packs strong and both of us in power. Regarding the matter you asked about, yes, I confirmed it. The healer's apprentice is indeed the daughter of the soldier who died at Ashfall Pass, the one who nearly ruined everything by making my son question the war. It is poetic, really. Your son rejected the daughter of the only man my son ever called friend. Burn this letter after reading. Namira read it 3 times. Her father, the soldier who died at Ashfall Pass, the one who nearly ruined everything by making my son question the war. Her hands were shaking so badly the letter rattled. Papa had never spoken of the war in detail. He had left when she was 7 and returned in a box when she was 12. She had been told he died in battle. Nothing more. No details. No honor ceremony. Just a sealed coffin and a mother who wept herself to death within the year. Your father was a good man, Mama had said before she died. He saved someone important. That is all I know. Someone important. Calder. Her father had died for Calder. The door opened behind her. Namira, the alchemist confirmed. Calder stopped. His eyes went to her face, to the letter in her trembling hands. What is it? What has happened? She could not speak. He crossed the room and took the letter gently from her fingers. She watched his face as he read. Watched the color drain from his skin. Watched his expression cycle through confusion, recognition, and finally a devastation so complete it stole her breath. Namira, he said. Her name sounded like it was being torn from him. My father. Her voice did not sound like her own. You knew my father. I did not know he was yours. I did not... He stopped. Started again. Brennick. His name was Brennick. He was my captain. My advisor. The only person in my entire army who ever told me the truth. He died. He died saving my life. Calder's voice cracked. There was an ambush. An arrow meant for me. He moved before I even saw it coming. He took it instead. Namira felt something inside her collapse. He talked about you, Calder continued, his words tumbling out desperately. About his daughter. How smart she was. How she was going to be a great healer someday. He showed me a drawing you had made him. Flowers with faces. He carried it in his armor. He said it reminded him why he was fighting. Stop. Namira. Stop. She pressed her hands against her ears. Please stop. Calder fell silent. The room felt too small, the air too thick. Her father had died for this man, had taken an arrow meant for him, had talked about her with his last breaths. And she had spent 3 weeks falling in love with the reason she was an orphan. You were his friend, she whispered. I was. He loved you enough to die for you. I do not know why. I have never understood it. She looked at him then. Really looked. Saw the guilt carved into every line of his face, the weight he had been carrying long before she ever met him. I cannot do this, she said. Namira, I cannot look at you right now. She was crying. She had not even noticed starting. You are the reason I have no one, the reason my mother died of grief. The reason I was nobody in Greymore, no status, no family, nothing to protect me from being thrown away like garbage. I know. And you did not tell me. I did not know you were his daughter. I swear to you, I did not. But you knew someone died for you. Her voice rose. You knew you were living on borrowed time. And you never thought to ask who paid the price. He had no answer. Namira walked past him, every step feeling like she was leaving pieces of herself behind. Where are you going? He asked. Away from you. Namira, please. My mother's conspiracy. The poisoning. We have to handle it yourself. She stopped at the door but did not turn around. I came here because I had nowhere else to go. But I cannot stay with the man responsible for destroying my family. I cannot. I am not asking you to forgive me, Calder said, his voice rough. But please, do not leave where I cannot protect you. My mother is dangerous. If she knows you found that letter, then let her come. Namira opened the door. I do not care anymore. She left. Behind her, she heard something shatter. A sound that might have been a fist hitting a wall, or a heart breaking. She did not look back. Namira did not know where she was going. She walked through the corridors of Thornwell Keep without seeing them, her father's face swimming in her memory. The face she had tried so hard to hold on to after he left. The face that had grown blurry over the years until she could only remember pieces. The crinkle at his eyes when he laughed, the roughness of his hands when he tucked her into bed. The way he smelled like pine and wool and something that was just him. He had died for Calder. He had died. And her mother had followed, and Namira had been alone ever since. And the man responsible had held her hand an hour ago and looked at her like she was something precious. She found herself in the Eastern Gardens, a small courtyard where the snow had been cleared and winter roses bloomed against the gray stone walls. She sank onto a bench and pressed her hands against her face. Breathe, she told herself. Just breathe. But every breath felt like swallowing glass. Footsteps crunched in the snow behind her. Poor child, a voice said, soft, sympathetic. You have learned the truth at last. Namira's head came up. Lady Viola stood at the garden's entrance, wrapped in furs the color of fresh cream. Her gray eyes, so like her son's, held an expression of gentle concern. I know what you must be feeling, the older woman continued, gliding closer. The betrayal, the grief, to discover that the man you trusted is the reason you lost everything. Namira stood slowly. Warning hummed through her instincts. How do you know what I discovered? I have eyes everywhere in this keep, dear girl. Lady Viola smiled. It did not reach her eyes. I know about the letter. I know about the poisoning. I know you have realized what my son truly is. Your son is not the monster here. Is he not? Lady Viola tilted her head. He told you about your father, yes? About Brennick? Did he tell you that your father begged him to retreat from that pass? That your father warned him it was a trap? And Calder ignored him out of pride? Namira's stomach twisted. Did he tell you? Lady Viola continued softly, that your father's last words were asking Calder to find you, to protect you, and that Calder did nothing. For years, he did nothing. He let you rot in Greymore while he waged his precious wars. He did not know who I was. He did not try to find out. Lady Vela stepped closer. Your father saved his life, and Calder could not even honor his dying wish. That is the man you are defending. That is the man you stayed up all night comforting. Namira felt her certainty wavering. The words landed like blows because some of them were true. Calder had ignored the warning. Her father had died because of it. What do you want? Namira asked. I want to help you. Lady Vela extended her hand. I know you wish to leave. I can arrange it. Safe passage to the southern territories. Beyond Greymore, beyond Thornwell. Somewhere neither pack can reach you. You could start over. Become the healer your father always believed you would be. Why would you help me? Because you remind me of someone I used to be. Lady Viola's voice softened. Trapped in a world of wolves and violence with no way out. I am offering you the escape I never had. Namira looked at the extended hand. Every instinct screamed at her to refuse. This woman had poisoned her own son for decades, had conspired with Lady Morwen to perpetuate a war that killed thousands, had established protocols that allowed servants to be cut for minor infractions. But another part of her, the part that was exhausted and grieving and desperate to be anywhere else, whispered, what if she is telling the truth? What if this is your only chance? Where would I go? Namira asked quietly. Come. Lady Viola smiled warmly. I will show you. The passage led through the servants' quarters and out a small gate Namira had never noticed. Beyond it, a narrow path wound down the mountainside, switchbacking through dense forest. There is a village at the base of the mountain, Lady Viola explained as they walked. A trading post. From there, you can join a caravan heading south. I have already arranged payment for your passage. You planned this. I planned for contingencies. Lady Viola glanced back with that same warm smile. When my son brought you here, I knew you would eventually become a problem. I simply prepared accordingly. The path narrowed. The trees closed in. Snow lay thick on either side, undisturbed by footprints. No one had come this way recently. No one was meeting them. Namira stopped walking. There is no caravan, she said. Lady Vela stopped as well. She did not turn around. You are cleverer than I gave you credit for, she said pleasantly. What is this really about? Lady Vela turned. The warmth was gone from her face, replaced by something cold and calculating. You found my letter. You know about the poisoning. You have turned my son against me. She reached into her cloak and withdrew a slim blade, its edge gleaming with something dark and wet. I cannot allow you to destroy what I have spent 30 years building. Your son loves you. My son is a weapon. Lady Vela advanced slowly. I forged him through fire and blood and carefully administered madness. He was never supposed to think for himself, never supposed to question. And then that fool Brennick started whispering in his ear about peace and mercy and choice, and I had to arrange an ambush to silence him. Namira's blood froze. You, she breathed, you arranged the trap at Ashfall Pass. You killed my father. Your father was going to ruin everything. He had to be eliminated. Lady Viola shrugged. It was nothing personal. Just as this is nothing personal. You are simply inconvenient. She lunged. Namira threw herself sideways, but the path was too narrow, the snow too deep. The blade caught her arm, slicing through fabric and skin. She cried out and stumbled backward. Running will only make this harder, Lady Vela said calmly, advancing. Stand still. I will make it quick. Namira's back hit a tree. The blade rose. Calder! The scream tore out of her before she could think. Not because she expected him to come, but because his name was the only thing in her head, the only anchor she had left. The blade descended. Something massive hit her from the side. Namira flew through the air and landed in a snowbank, the breath knocked from her lungs. She lay there gasping, ears ringing, trying to understand what had happened. Then she heard it. A sound she had heard once before. A snarl that broke into something raw and ragged. She pushed herself up. The great gray wolf stood between her and Lady Viola. His teeth were bared, his hackles raised, his body trembling with barely contained fury. And buried deep in his shoulder, the poisoned blade. "No," Namira whispered. Lady Vela stumbled backward, her face white with shock. "How did you—" "The passage is hidden. You could not have—" But wolves did not need passages. They needed only a scent. And Calder had memorized hers weeks ago. The wolf lunged, but the poison was already working. His legs buckled mid-stride. He crashed into the snow, body convulsing, and the same terrible wrongness she had seen in him before, except worse. So much worse. "Calder!" Namira scrambled toward him, snow tearing at her hands and knees. She reached his side and pressed her hands against the wound, trying to staunch the blood. The wolf's eyes found hers, gray and gold and full of pain. "Do not," she choked out. "Do not you dare? You do not get to die for me. Not like this. Not like him." His great head dropped against her lap. Behind her, Lady Vela was running, footsteps crunching through snow, fleeing back toward the keep. Namira did not care. She wrapped her arms around the wolf's neck and held on. "Please," she whispered into his fur. "Please stay with me. I forgive you. Do you hear me? I forgive you for everything. Just stay." The wolf's breathing slowed, stopped. The next hours existed in fragments. Soldiers finding them in the snow. Someone prying her away from the wolf's body. Ren's face, pale and terrified, watching as they carried the massive gray form through the gates on a makeshift stretcher. He was not dead. Barely alive, but not dead. The healers said it was impossible. The poison should have killed him within minutes. The wound should have been fatal. By every measure, Alpha Calder of Thornwell should have died on that mountain path. But his heart kept beating, slow and stubborn and refusing to stop. Like the man himself, Namira thought, she did not leave his side. For 3 days she sat beside his bed, changing his bandages, monitoring the poison's progression, brewing antidotes from every herb in Thornwell's stores. Ren stayed with her, sleeping in a nest of blankets in the corner, fetching supplies when she needed them, his small hand occasionally finding hers when the fear became too much. On the 3rd night, Selah brought news. "Lady Viola has been captured," the servant said quietly. "The guards found her trying to flee through the eastern pass. She is in the cells now." "Good. The council wants to know what to do with her. They are waiting for the Alpha's orders, but the Alpha might never wake." Namira looked at Calder's still face. The lines of pain had smoothed in unconsciousness, making him look younger. Vulnerable. "When he wakes," she said firmly, "he will decide." Selah nodded and withdrew. Namira took Calder's hand in hers. It was warmer now than it had been yesterday. A good sign. "You saved my life," she said quietly. "You threw yourself in front of that blade exactly the way my father threw himself in front of that arrow. And I realized something." She paused, searching for words. "I was angry at you for surviving, for being the reason he died. But that is not fair, is it? He chose to save you. He saw something in you worth dying for. And for years, I wished he had chosen differently. I wished he had saved himself instead." Her voice cracked. "But if he had, you would be dead. And Ren would still be getting cut in the kitchens. And those refugees would have nowhere to go. And I would have died in Greymoor's great hall with everyone watching." She lifted his hand and pressed it against her cheek. "My father gave his life so you could live. And you have spent that life trying to be worthy of it, even when no one helped you, even when your own mother was poisoning your mind. That is not a debt. That is a legacy. And I think, she whispered, I think maybe I am part of it. Maybe that is why fate marked me for Gavrik and then let him throw me away. So I could end up here, with you. Behind her, Ren made a small sound. Namira turned. Calder's eyes were open, gray and gold and full of something that looked like wonder. You stayed, he rasped. I stayed. I thought you were leaving. I changed my mind. She smiled through the tears streaming down her face. Someone has to keep you from dying heroically. You are clearly incapable of self-preservation. His mouth twitched, almost a smile. My mother? In the cells. Waiting for your judgment. He closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, the grief was there, but tempered by something else. Resolution. She killed your father, he said, the words heavy. She arranged the ambush. I heard her say it. Before you threw yourself in front of a poisoned blade like an idiot? Yes. That. He reached up slowly, his hand finding her face. You forgave me. I did. I do not deserve it. Perhaps not. She covered his hand with hers. But my father saw something in you worth dying for. And I am beginning to see it too. Ren could not contain himself anymore. He launched himself onto the bed, wrapping his thin arms around Calder's neck with complete disregard for injuries or dignity. Calder made a sound of pain but did not push him away. His free arm came around the boy, holding him close. We are quite a group, Namira said softly. We are, Calder agreed. His eyes found hers over Ren's head, and something passed between them. Not a promise. Not yet. But the beginning of one. 6 months later, spring had come to Thornwell. The snow had melted. The gardens bloomed. And in the great hall where treaties were signed and alliances forged, a different kind of ceremony was taking place. Namira stood at the center of the room, wearing a dress the color of autumn leaves. Her hands trembled slightly despite her best efforts. Across from her, Calder waited. He wore no armor today, just simple dark clothing that made his gray eyes stand out like storm clouds breaking. Between them, the pack seer held a ceremonial blade. The marking of mates is sacred, the old woman intoned. It is not given lightly. It is not taken back. Do you both understand this? Yes, they said together. The seer looked at Calder. Alpha Calder of Thornwell. Do you choose this woman freely? Not as duty, not as obligation, but as the partner of your heart? I do, Calder said. His voice was steady, but his eyes were anything but. They burned with an intensity that made Namira's knees weak. The seer turned to her. Namira, daughter of Brennick. Do you choose this man freely? Not as rescue, not as refuge, but as the partner of your heart? I do. The seer smiled and stepped back. Then let it be done. Calder took her hand and raised it to his lips. The kiss he pressed against her palm was gentle, reverent. The crowd erupted in cheers. But Namira was not looking at the crowd. She was looking at the small figure pushing through the assembled wolves with single-minded determination. Ren reached them, slightly out of breath, and tugged on Calder's sleeve. Calder crouched down. What is it? Ren held up a piece of parchment. On it, in careful letters he had been practicing for months, were 3 words. My family now? Calder's face did something complicated. He looked at Namira. She nodded, tears spilling over. Yes, Calder said roughly, pulling the boy into his arms. Your family now. Officially. Permanently. If you will have us. Ren's answer was to wrap his arms around both of them and hold on with all his strength. The crowd's cheers softened into something warmer, something knowing. But Namira barely heard them. She was too busy memorizing this moment, the weight of Calder's arm around her waist. The warmth of Ren pressed between them. The sense, for the first time in her entire life, of being exactly where she belonged. Papa would have loved this, she thought, and somewhere, she was certain he knew. Later that night, when the celebrations had quieted and Ren had been carried to bed by a laughing Selah, Namira stood on the balcony of the Alpha's chambers. Their chambers now. Calder came up behind her, his arms sliding around her waist. "Having regrets?" He murmured against her hair. "None." She leaned back into him. "You. Only that I did not find you sooner." She turned in his arms to face him. In the moonlight, his scars were silver, his eyes soft. "You found me exactly when you were supposed to," she said. "When we were both ready. I am not certain I was ready. You threw yourself in front of a poisoned blade for me. I think you were ready." He laughed, that sound she had grown to treasure, low and warm and real. "I love you," he said, simply, completely. "I know." She rose on her toes and kissed him. "I love you too, even when you are being heroically stupid. I will try to minimize the heroic stupidity. See that you do." She pulled back slightly, her expression softening. "We have a family to raise now. Heroic stupidity is not compatible with that. A family." He said the word like he was still learning how it tasted. "I never thought I would have one. Neither did I." She took his hand and placed it over her heart. "But here we are." He smiled. That rare, unguarded smile that she was still collecting like precious stones. "Here we are," he agreed. And when he kissed her again, with the moon rising over the mountains and the sounds of their pack settling into peaceful sleep below them, Namira finally understood what her father had seen in Calder all those years ago. Not a monster, not a weapon, just a man worth saving. And she intended to spend the rest of her life proving it.